All right, we're live before the train wreck, episode number 8, with my co-host Sean T. Smith. How you doing, brother?
Good. How you doing, Rich?
Doing good. Still cold down in Denver?
Yeah, it's about 10 degrees today. We have different degrees than you, though. You do Celsius and we do Fahrenheit.
Yeah, from what I'm told, it evens out somewhere around minus 18 or 20 or something. It's currently minus 18 degrees Celsius here. It's cold as hell. So tonight's topic, before the train wreck, when addictions become red flags. We have a news piece which we'll get into a moment. And for those of you guys that are just rolling in, getting the notifications, we're going to be taking calls, but we're not going to do it as a call-in. The audio seems to be better on Google Hangouts. And I'm not having a whole hell of a lot of luck with Blog Talk Radio. So what I'll do is I'll post the join link in the chat. You can join us. Make sure you're muted when you join. And have a question ready. Let us know where you're at and what you're stuck on, what red flag you're seeing, and we'll do our best to help you out. Now, if more than one of you join in at a time, just kind of like wait in queue. So I'll come to you and I'll let you know when it's your turn. But it should run very smoothly. If you're on a Apple device, you'll need to download Google Hangouts because it's not native on your device. Android devices should have it native, or if you click the link and launch from Chrome browser, you should have no problem either. So today's opening topic, when addictions become red flags. I'll stop talking for a minute, kind of pass it over to you before I chime in some more, but I'm sure you see this a lot in your practice, right?
Yeah, addictions are, they don't go well with relationships and connecting with other human beings. I know one of your guidelines for knowing if an addiction is a problem is if you can't make it your bitch and walk away from it for an extended period. And that's really, I think that's a good guideline, because when addictions and compulsions start to get in the way of social relationships and they start becoming the most important thing in your life, then obviously you're not going to function well in those other areas of your life.
Yeah, it's, to me, it can come from anything. Like a lot of the times people just focus on, well, they have an addiction on alcohol or drugs or something. But, addictions can come in the form of addictions to social media, addictions to booze, of course, foods, if you're overeating, if somebody has an addictive personality, that's one thing. But if they can't control the addictive person, like I have a friend that's an alcoholic and he still knows the day that he became sober. He did the AA stuff. He's got the medal, the crest, lost a ton of weight, took care of himself. He's 51 years old. I think he's been sober for over 20, 25 years now. He still has a day in line, and he's got an addictive personality. And if you have an addictive personality but you can control the addictions, that's cool. But addictions become red flags when they own you. Okay, you're drunk every night, you're stoned every night, you're posting 72 times on Instagram every day, sort of thing. That's when they can become red flags. You should be attentive to them.
Yeah, and I'm probably repeating something I've said on here before, but people who are in recovery are really good at relationships, because you can't bullshit your way through recovery. You got to take a good hard look at yourself and you got to make some changes. And it's a level of work that most people don't have to do on themselves. So guys and gals that are sober and they're in program, man, they make great partners. They just have a level of insight that other people don't.
Yeah, I'm sure people that don't have those problems aren't showing up with addictions in your clinical practice. It's just, it's just a big red flag, guys. So just be aware of it. Tonight, again, it's a standard, before the train wreck Q&A sort of stuff. So if you have questions, there's a scenario that you want to vet, a potential red flag that you're looking up the flagpole right now and wondering what Sean and Rich think of it. I'm going to give you the join link in the chat. It's a Hangout join link, so you can click it to join. Make sure you're muted when you join. Have a question ready. It's not for commentary, so this is a before the train wreck sort of scenario. What is it that you'd like to get some eyes and ears on to get some clarity? I got a link here that you sent me, Sean, from Psych Central. And what is the title? Oral contraceptives may impair. I got an ad that covers up something here.
Oral contraceptives may impair recognition of complex emotions. And somebody did a study and found out that there's this tiny little clinical effect where women who are on contraceptives, it changes their hormones in a way that takes them out of touch a little bit, but it's such a minor effect. Little things like this, you see headlines, they're usually statistically significant, which doesn't mean significant in real life. It just means that somebody found a little effect someplace. I just thought it was kind of an interesting article that, there's no free lunches with your brain. Like you change your brain chemistry and there's going to be a trade-off at some point.
Yeah, definitely, because it changes your hormones dramatically. And it's it's the same thing with they've got this male birth control pill, and they did this study, double-blind study, and they're like, oh, it's it's safe. It's guys will be able to take this and they won't be able to knock anybody up. But I mean, the thing is that it makes your testosterone levels tank. So I mean, you're not going to get one thing without the other. Sure, you can be on hormonal birth control, but you're going to end up with some other problems down the line, which is going to suck. I mean, if you've got low T, then how are you going to function as a man? It just makes you weak.
Well, no testosterone makes birth control pretty easy, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, if your Johnson's not going to work, what are you going to do? Nobody gets knocked up, right?
So it works.
Yeah, I'm just going to mute you, Andrew, just to make sure we don't get any feedback. Dennis, do you have a microphone? I can take your question first if you like. Guys, make sure when you join, you've got yourself muted just so we don't get the audio feedback. Dennis, you're up. If you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
I'm curious, do you think if I'm dating someone who lives with a roommate and her roommate smokes weed and drinks, do you think it's a red flag if I'm dating that woman?
Sorry, not the woman you're dating, but her roommate is a lazy pothead.
Smoking weed, yes. So far we've been on 3-4 dates, and she kind of admitted using drugs when she was 21. And I'm just concerned that she might be impacted by her roommate because she said that her roommate is a big pothead.
What do you think, Sean?
Well, just because her roommate's a big pothead doesn't mean she's a big pothead. What is her stance on pot?
I think she's okay with smoking pot. I don't think she smokes obsessively, but it's my concern that she might be smoking once in a while.
And why would that trouble you?
Well, I'm kind of vetting her, so if I want to start a family with her, I just don't want her have that impact in our relationship. I want her to have a healthy body, and I want us to have healthy kids.
So you've been out with her 3 times, and you're talking about marriage in your head right now?
Honestly, if I'm vetting women from the start. Mm-hmm. So if I see red flags, I'd rather let them go, because I had bad experience with my past relationship. I've been dating somebody for 9 months, and I've seen red flags before, but I ignore them. So I'm really putting time into asking the right questions and properly vetting and not wasting my time.
So why don't you just apply the litmus test that we talked about earlier, where, if it's a scenario that, like, if the pot is getting in the way of her life and it's all she does and she's sitting around not moving, just getting stoned all the time, eating munchies and sort of thing, then that's a problem, right? But can she walk away with, from it for a week or two? Or is it something that she has to do on a consistent basis? To me, marijuana, it's a lot safer in my estimation than alcohol, and it's not going to do nearly as much damage to your body. I mean, there's some medicinal benefits to it, of course, with CBD and stuff like that. But you got to ask yourself, that question is this running her life? Like, is this what she does all day long, week in, week out, day in, day out, right? That's what I'd be asking right now.
Yeah. So here's the word I'll throw at you. It's avoidance. Is she using pot or anything else to avoid what she should be dealing with in life? And think of it as like a glass of wine. So she has a have a joint on a Friday or something. That might be the equivalent of a glass of wine. That's not pulling her away from life, and that's not causing her to avoid problems that she should be facing, whether it's outside of her or inside her own head. If she's starting to use anything to avoid what she should be facing, that's a big red flag.
There you go. Does that help you out, Dennis?
Yes, thank you.
All right, brother. Thanks for hopping on. We'll catch up with you later, okay?
Thank you.
All right, ciao. All right, just going to eject you, and what do we got here? I got you muted, Andrew, so if you want to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Gotcha. How you doing, man?
Hey, good to see you, Richard. Big fan. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks.
I would like your opinion on girls who are obsessed or overly obsessed with pets, creatures, things like that around the house, and make those a big priority almost as much as other things that should be a bigger priority in their lives.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because that was one of the things going through my head when I was thinking when addictions become red flags, because I have dealt with women that have a addiction to rescuing animals, you know, if you will. And I like animals, but if you live in an apartment the size of my office space here, and you've got a chinchilla, 2 rabbits, a cat, and a parrot, and your place smells like a zoo, then I would say that there's a problem there, right? Like, what are we talking about here? Like 1 or 2 cats, or
Like a hairless cat and I think it's a grown lab, and a parrot.
so 3 pets? How big is your place? Is it the size of my office space here, or is it large?
It's like a 2-bedroom apartment.
What's your take on it, Sean?
I can't remember who posted it on Twitter this week, but somebody said that slight revulsion that you get when you look at a hairless cat, that's the feeling that chimpanzees get when they look at us.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to that same thing of avoidance. So, okay, she's devoting a lot of time and energy to cats or whatever, hairless cats. Is there something that she should be doing in life that she's not doing because of that? Is that filling a void for her? Is that an avoidance strategy that is insulating her from some harder questions?
See, and that's kind of like where my perspective and her perspective differs, because in my opinion, I think if you should have an animal, it should be an animal to provide service, to provide obedience, and to provide some kind of fulfillment of duty. And to her, animals just mean companionship. And so if you were to take, let's say, if she was to take those animals away, or they were taken away, will she be filling that void with something else that's more productive? Or will she only be able to fill that void with animals?
Well, I think for the most part, animals like play the role of a companion more than anything else. I mean, there's places in the world that you go to where if they have dogs, they're there as security. You know, they're not there as a pet, and they usually keep them outside. Whereas, you know, for the most part in most Western, you know, first world countries, you know, it's like companionship. But is she using these animals to replace children? You know, is she using these animals as a crutch, like a comfort? I mean, one of the big red flags that I noticed, you know, in my life dating, you know, with women, was when they slept with their animals in the bed. And for me, like, it just became a deal breaker when I woke up one morning with the dog's asshole literally like 2 inches from my face. And I'm like, this is not happening again. This dog is not sleeping on the bed. I'm not waking up like this. Or if a cat is like walking across your head in the middle of the night. Okay. Like, you've got to put some boundaries in line when it, you know, when it comes to stuff like that, in my estimation anyway. Right. You know, to me, I wouldn't date a woman that had a couple of cats and they would come in the bedroom in the night and crawl on your head or bite your toes. I had this one chick I was with for a number of years. She had this cat that would bite my toes in the middle of the night, like clamp down on it while I was asleep, and I would just launch it across the room. Right. So you got to just like, is it a problem? Like, does she treat these animals like people? Does she lean on them for, you know, real in-depth relationship? Does she talk to them like weird ass conversations with their dogs, right? Long ones, not just, you know, food's ready or let's go for a walk or walkies or anything like that, but just long ass conversations with the dog, right? Sort of thing. You got to ask yourself what's going on there.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's something that I should probably take into consideration and look a little bit closer into before I decide whether or not she fully, you know, passed the vetting test or not.
So,
Yeah.
Andre, what do you think? What is the function that these animals serve in her life?
I think what they primarily serve is some kind of a break from boredom, because any single time when we first met, if there was nothing to talk about in her life, you know, she would automatically jump to something that the animals did or something that is going on with them. You know, like it's almost like she almost had nothing to her own personality to contribute to make me seem like she's an interesting person, you know, which kind of gave me a little bit of a red flag, because I never thought that animals would be an addiction. Like you're right, you know, they're a companion and they could be, but I never thought that someone could almost treasure animals more than they value themselves, like to have a low self-esteem.
Here's a question you could ask her. I don't. This is not scientific, but you can ask her this question: if there was a dog and a kid or not say a kid, let's say there was a dog and a person out in a rowboat and the boat sank and the dog and the person were both drowning, which one would she save? And if the answer is, well, I'd save the dog, then you, I guess you have
Mhm.
somebody who values animals over humans. But look, the question is really what purpose does it serve for her? Women have this maternal instinct. Like my wife had always had dogs before we got married, and the dogs were not the center of her life, but they were important to her, and they were a place for her to put her maternal instincts, I think, and her maternal energy. But she would, if you asked her that question, would you save the dog or the person? She would say, well, obviously I'm going to save the person.
There you go. Does that help out?
That does. Thank you so much, Rich. Greetings from Saskatoon.
All right. Thank you, man. Oh, there's another good point there that came out in the comments. Does she buy her pets presents? Here's a red flag. You ever see those chicks that take pictures with their pets with Santa Claus and put it at their office desk?
Yeah.
That's a little strange. You know what I'm saying?
That might fall into the category of a person or animal taking the place of a person.
Yeah.
I would have to be curious about what caused that decision.
Yeah.
If she's just being goofy and
Totally
having
fine.
fun, then fine, that's cool. But if there's something more important, then I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. I'm just going to eject you, make room for some other people. Just post the link in the chat, guys. If you have a question, red flag that your spidey senses are picking up on, let's have a conversation about it. Just click the link. Make sure you launch it from either a Chrome browser, an Android phone, because Hangouts is native, or install Google Hangouts on your iOS. Yeah, that's interesting. You know, the pet one, you said that your wife had a pet when you guys met or before you had your daughter?
Yeah, she had this great big German Shepherd mix. He was a cool dog, and she took care of him. You know, that was a very important part of her life, to have this other creature that she took care of and fed and kept alive, and that's part of who she is as a woman.
Yeah, yeah. I like dogs, man. It's just you know, I had a dog for about 6 months, Rottweiler, gorgeous dog. But I just couldn't train it, and I didn't have the time, you know, to take care of her because I was working basically from morning till night. But you know, walking that thing and spending time with it, like even after 6 months, like I bawled like a 7-year-old girl having her candy, you know, taken away from her, sort of thing, when I had to give her away to a friend with a farm. But yeah, pets are a big part of life, but I just see it as bizarre when they're sleeping with them or they're buying them clothes or, you know, taking pictures with Santa Claus and putting them on the desk. It gets a little, you know, in the woohoo category.
It does.
Thing, right?
And with dogs in particular, I'm a dog person. We don't have one right now, but we will soon. And you got to be careful with dogs because they speak a different language. And when you're treating them like a person, you're letting them sleep in the bed and so forth. It's not a good situation for the dog because they need to know what the structure is and they don't need to be in charge. It's a bad situation when they're in charge.
Yeah, it's not a good situation for the dog or for the couple. You know, if you're a couple, right? Oh, welcome new member, Jen's Red Pill. So yeah, you'll notice your name will be in green if you become a member. By the way, the community tab is part of the membership. I take topic suggestions from guys there. I have some topic suggestions. Conk, I got yours as well, by the way. So I'll be putting out some videos on those based on that feedback. Anyway, the Hangout link, let's hit it again. Just click it. You can join us, ask your question, whatever red flag it is that you're trying to vet for. See if we got any questions in the chat here, Sean. Just dialogue back and forth. If you guys have questions, you can also put them in the chat too.
I got something to throw at you. I posted this link earlier on Twitter this week. It was a study. Let me find the title real quick. This will just take me a second. It was called Men's Porn Habits May Fuel Partners' Eating Disorders. And somebody at a university somewhere did a study where it looks like they really went in with an agenda to make men the source of women's problems. And they found that women who were having eating disorders that was supposedly aggravated by their men watching porn. And it just struck me as a really sloppy study, even though I really didn't get into the nitty gritty of the methodology. So I probably shouldn't say that, but it's one of those things where you could just as easily say that women's eating disorders are causing men to go look at porn. They found a correlation. And of course they pointed the blame at the men.
Well, I mean, you could argue that if your wife puts on 150 pounds and you're no longer attracted to her, you might turn your eye towards pornography, right? Like that might be one of your coping mechanisms, wouldn't it?
You might. And that
Right.
they weren't talking about obesity in this study. They were looking at women who have disorders that lead them to want to be smaller than they should be.
Mhm.
But that's a coping strategy that predates the relationship.
By the way, you were talking about a steaming pile of feminist crap. I can't remember what book it was that you held up. It was an article or something like that. I've been listening to Untrue by Wednesday Martin. Have you heard about that book?
No, he mentioned it a while back. I need to get it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it takes a lot of concepts from Evo Psych, but then it throws like a massive feminist twist at it. And it's like, she spent, like, I was listening to it at the gym the other day, and she spent an entire chapter talking about how the plow has destroyed women and confined them to the household because they didn't have the physical strength to move the plow around or to deal with, large animals that were pulling the plows around. She just goes into depth in all these different areas and just keeps splashing all this feminist stuff at it. It's just,
anytime
I get what you talk about when you make reference to stuff like that now.
it's horrible. Anytime you have an ideology that starts getting injected into a reasonable science, like evolutionary psychology, or reasonable science, I don't think you can call it a hard science most of the time, but it's pretty rational. And I don't care what kind of ideology it is, when you start polluting it with your ideology, you really move away from the principles. And feminist ideology, man, it has infected the humanities and is starting to infect the hard sciences now. And everything it touches starts taking on this social justice bent to it that gets further and further away from reality.
Did you ever hear back from the APA, by the way? Or
No.
they just ignored you? Yeah.
They just ignored me. So I'm working on the next video.
Oh.
Speaking of feminism, I'm checking into the sources that they used to build these guidelines and actually reading what they read to put this together. And it is a steaming pile of feminist horseshit.
All right. If you guys are not subscribed to Sean's channel, do it now. Linking it there. He's got just past 10,000 subs. He's putting out awesome content. You should check out the stuff that he's putting out when it comes. It's really good. Again, before the train wreck show, guys, if you have a red flag that you would like to ask about, vet, whatever it is that your spidey senses are tingling on, there's a hangout link I've posted in there. Just click it, join us. You can ask a question live. We're not doing call-in numbers tonight. Seems to be working a lot better this way. The audio is a lot clearer anyway. Welcome new member, Cappy Donahue.
So Flamed65 asks, does not watching porn actually make you feel better? I think that's an interesting question. What do you think about that, Rich?
Well, I've watched my fair share of porn in the past, and I just don't really watch it that much anymore, to be honest with you. Do I feel any better? Nope. Haven't noticed any difference in feelings.
No. Okay.
No. How about you?
I've never seen it myself. I don't,
You've never seen porn before?
No.
You never inhaled either, right?
No. I think it depends on what purpose it serves for you. If it's running your life, then yeah, you're going to feel better when you stop watching it.
Yeah. Again, yeah, if it's running your life, for sure.
Actually, that's not true. You're going to feel worse for a while, but then you'll feel better.
You guys can actually ask your questions in the comments too. So until somebody clicks the link and wants to join Ask Live, and you can turn off your video too, by the way. I mean, you don't have to have your video on. We just need good, clear audio. See if there's any other questions here. Let me scroll up. No, okay. Show that. They say that porn will damage your brain. What do you think of that?
Damage your brain? No, it throws off the way your brain handles reward, but your brain can always go back to baseline. Even people who use pot heavily for years, their brain will go back to baseline to some degree, assuming they started as adult and not as kids. But it takes a while. But it doesn't damage your brain that I know of, but it throws it off for a while, certainly.
How does it throw it off exactly?
It changes the way your brain handles reward, and it basically becomes sort of an internal addiction. I hate that word addiction applied to this because it's not an addiction. You don't get withdrawals, but you get this compulsion where if you're not receiving it, your brain essentially says, hey, I'm being ripped off here. I got to have this. And so it starts to take on a life of its own. And then other things, that affects the way other things are or are not rewarding to you. And I'm having to really pull deep here and try to remember what I've learned about this in the past. So maybe
Well,
next week.
I've seen studies and arguments that talk about how it pulls away drive and motivation and lowers testosterone too, apparently.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we got any other questions in here? How much masturbating is too much? 1, 2, 3 hours a day. I don't know, Dan. I would say 3 hours is probably too much, dude. Welcome, new member, Photoman54. Welcome. Again, you can post your questions in the chat. The show is before the train wreck. Hopefully your spidey senses are picking up on some red flag you want to talk about. You can click the link and join us in the live broadcast and ask us there. You want to launch it from a Chrome browser or from an Android phone. The Hangout's native on it. If not, if you have iOS and you want to download Google Hangouts. Let's see if we got any other questions here. Dr. Smith should speak with Gary Wilson, author of Your Brain on Porn book. Have you heard of this guy?
No, I haven't. Do you know who he is?
No, I've never heard of it. I've got an Audible account, so I'm always downloading books every month. Here's a question for you. What's a book that's updated your belief system in the last year that you've read? That was like, whoa, this is profound.
Updated my belief systems. I'm reading Jack Murphy's book right now, and I don't know that it's profound to me, but it's really well written. He wrote this book called Democrat to Deplorable about elections in the U.S. here. And number one, he's a great writer. I'm kind of envious of his writing style, but he also has this. He did something that most people in America don't seem to be willing to do now, which is that he actually went and listened to people. He tracked down the people who had made some political changes in their life. They used to be Obama supporters, and then they were Trump supporters, and he actually went and listened to them, and he's telling their story, and it's a fascinating book. One of the books I've been getting through lately is a biography of Peter the Great, and that's I wouldn't say again that one's changing my life, but it's very inspiring because here's a dude who was 100% man, and he was unapologetic about it, and he went out and he tried new things, and he brought new technologies to the Russian Empire and expanded, and he made some social changes that were good, and he's just a fascinating guy.
Yeah, I just finished reading *Sapiens*. It was a big dent in my universe. It was interesting to learn about the evolutionary origins of human beings who've only been here for like 70,000 years. It's not been that long.
What's the big takeaway you've gotten from that so far?
Oh man, Neanderthals were far more successful than us. They were on the planet for millions of years, and we basically wiped them out. Sapiens really reshaped the face of the earth, like literally. Like when they came to, I think it was Australia, they basically wiped out every animal that was over like 150 pounds or something like that. They just reshape landscapes, kill off other species. We're like a cancer to the planet, actually. It's a fairly interesting read just to kind of like, get the origins of humanity and where we've come from, sort of thing.
You might check out William von Hippel next. He wrote a book called The Social Leap, and he talks about how our social lives contributed to that.
What's it called? The Social Leap?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I noticed in that book was that the reason why we're so successful as a species is because of gossip. And we can just believe in, as long as we all subscribe to the same belief, whether it's religion, politics, or even money. For example, like money's not real. The only reason why money has any value is because we all believe that $100 is worth $100, and it stores that value, right? So, yeah, I'll check that out. I just made a note on that one. I'm just going to go back to the comments here, see if we have any. Yeah, we got some questions here. Gentlemen, ladies, you can also click that link and join us in the Hangout. It'd be way easier to do questions that way because we can go back and forth. Brian, girl invites me over at 12 a.m. She's drunk and smoking cigarettes, tells me straight up she's alcoholic and clearly wanting sex. Should I have left without doing anything? That's kind of like one of those things where you should be able to figure that one out for yourself, my friend. Right? Sometimes I wish the questions were a little deeper. Got any other questions here you're picking up, Sean?
Yeah, let's see. I just lost it. Someone asked us, oh, here we go. In your opinion, how does porn affect performance in the bed, I assume?
How does porn affect performance in the bedroom? I don't know. Are there any studies on that? Have you read anything?
I don't know. I bet there are studies. I think it has a lot to do with your age. I think when you're 18, you can go all day. When you're 50, things slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
So I would think that any external activity would show up in the bedroom, not in a great way. But the external activity could show up in the bedroom in a good way when you're 18, if it actually could improve your performance in the bedroom because you relieve some of that pressure.
There's a question here about flat Earth. Why is it that people still think the Earth is flat? Like, I'm confused about that. Like, have we not solved that question yet?
Is it flat? I don't think it's flat. Yeah.
I don't know.
I've not seen it from a distance, but I'm pretty reliably saying that it's round or spherical, I should say.
There's a really good series on Netflix that Will Smith hosts, One Strange Rock, it's called, and it basically incorporates these experiences from these astronauts with their view of the Earth as they're circling it, like whatever, 75,000 miles an hour. Yeah, it's a really good series. Check it out if you have some chance.
Well, to answer the question, I think people like simple answers to complicated questions.
Yeah.
And it's also fun to believe that you're on the inside and you know what the real skinny is.
Correct. Conk, before we go to you, just give me 1 second. Just going to mute you for a sec. Got a question here. Rich question. I'm 22, work full-time as a machinist and run a business. Should I focus on picking up women and increasing social skills? How should I maximize my time for business and girls? I don't see that as a before the train wreck question, so I'm going to skip it. Conk, unmute yourself.
Hey guys, what's going on?
How are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. So there's a guy in the chat that was asking a question a couple times, and I thought it was interesting enough that I thought I'd bring it up here.
Okay.
He was asking about the topic of addiction, but he was talking about like red flags for people who take antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds pretty regularly and in heavily doses. How does that relate to like red flags or addictions or possible things like that in relation to like mental illness versus addiction, if that makes sense?
Well, this is probably Sean's area better than mine, but I'll say this. I mean, any chick that's on an antidepressant to me is a huge red flag. I mean, those things wreak havoc on your system. They lower your sex drive. It just causes like, it just numbs you. It just makes you kind of like sleepwalk through your life. They're not good chicks to spend a great deal of time with, in my estimation. Sean, go ahead though.
Well, it depends. It depends on so many things, but there's so much evidence on both sides of the antidepressant question because everybody who does a study on antidepressants has some kind of agenda that they're trying to push. So if they're the drug companies, they of course want a certain kind of study. And if you're on a campus and you don't like antidepressants, you want a different kind of outcome. And so it's really hard to know what to look at. Some of the data that I find most compelling says that SSRIs, that's the most common class of depressants, and there's a whole lot of drugs in that category, that they really don't do much beyond like the 9-month mark. And this is just one of the, these are just some of the studies I've read. Other studies say different things, but I find this kind of compelling. And to my mind, antidepressants are great, but they are a short-term strategy. They're not a lifetime strategy. And the same thing with anti-anxiety medications in particular. Those are definitely not long-term strategies. And so if a woman is on antidepressants, again, you get curious, well, why and how long and what else are you doing to deal with this problem? Because if it's situational depression, meaning any person would be depressed in that situation, antidepressants still aren't a great answer, but a lot of doctors prescribe them, so it's not necessarily a red flag. But if it's been going on for 10 years, that I have some questions about that.
Yeah, I think I wanted to ask this with him because it is like I kind of have some skin in the game in this regard because I'm a social worker, I'm a case manager for a nonprofit, and most of my clients, like, they prescribe those like candy. You know what I mean? The Abilifys and the Zolofts and even Adderall, like every kid pretty much gets whatever they want. And so where I think for sure we are definitely over prescribing those. So it's good to hear your take on that. Yeah.
And especially with kids. And I'm going to go back on something I said earlier, that your brain always goes back to baseline. There is some evidence that when you take SSRIs for an extended period of time, and I don't know what extended is here, but years, that it actually downregulates the serotonin in your brain, which we don't really know what that does entirely because there's this whole serotonin hypothesis that's up for debate. But that the SSRIs can downregulate serotonin in a way that your brain kind of has trouble bouncing back from. And that's one of the reasons I really dislike seeing people on antidepressants for more than 6 or 9 months. And then there's, it gets so complicated. You don't want to be going on and off antidepressants. Like if you're going to be on, then be on them and until you're ready to be off of them. Don't bounce back and forth.
One thing also to look out for too, Corey, is like one of the things that I always say is before you go on antidepressants, make sure you take a look around at the people in your life and you're not surrounded by assholes. If you're living in a miserable state and you don't have much to be happy about, you want to take a look at your circle of influence as well too, right?
Yeah. And I also need to say, obviously I'm not a medical doctor. So this is just my opinion on antidepressants. And I don't advise people on their medications because I'm not licensed to do that. But there's 3 things that most guys and women too can do that are much more powerful than any antidepressant. And there's just study after study after study. Like every week, a new study comes out about this, and that's sleep, diet, and exercise. You manage your sleep, not too much, not too little. You make sure you're eating correctly. There was a study that just came out that said, particularly for women, diet has a pretty powerful effect on mood. So a good diet is really important for women. And exercise. Study after study, I mean, just dozens of them say that exercise, good, you work up a good sweat a few times a week, that has many more, much more effective than SSRIs without the side effects.
Yeah.
All
right, guys. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it. Yeah, sure, man. The other thing I was going to add to that too as well, Sean, here, I'll just bump you, Corey.
All right.
Thanks, Corey.
Is the women that go to the gym, like one thing that happens when you go to the gym and you exercise is you get this like boost. I don't know what the hormone is. What is it? Serotonin, like something that gives you like that like good feeling. It's almost like a high.
Yeah, there's a dopamine. You get a dopamine rush for going in, but you also get a little testosterone, and I'm sure your serotonin bounces around. You get all kinds of good stuff going on.
Yeah, and you feel good. Like, that's what your body wants. It wants to feel good. And if you push it and you stress it, it will respond in it, and it will, repair and build and pump out all the juice that your body needs to feel good. So you don't need to be on antidepressants. I've never met anybody that's fit and athletic or goes to the gym or does yoga or something that has been on antidepressants. It's always somebody that's kind of slow in their life, right? They're usually overweight too, is another signal and sign. We got somebody to join us on. Steven, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question or join in?
I just installed Hangouts and have no idea what it's all about. I didn't know I was going to show up there.
Yeah, you can kill your camera if you want to, if you don't want to show your face, but you're already on now, so.
Immortal.
There you go. Did you have a question or a red flag or the spidey senses tingling on something?
I'll just sit and listen for a while.
Oh, well, this is more of a ask a question sort of environment. So
okay.
I've put the link in there in the chat. I'm just going to bump you out, Steve. You can listen from the normal area. So the link in the chat is to click if you want to join us and ask a question. We just had Corey on who was asking a question about antidepressants. You got a red flag, something that your spidey senses are tingling on, you want to ask us about. Just click the link. Make sure you launch it from a Chrome browser or an Android phone, or install Google Hangouts on your iOS device.
Marcus asked, do you guys do cold showers?
I do. Not very often, though.
Why do you do them?
Well, they're good for your skin. They're good for your testosterone levels. They're good for waking up, focus, clearing brain fog. There's a whole slew of benefits. I mean, there's an entire community of people that follow this guy, Wim Hof. I don't know if you're familiar with Wim.
No.
Pretty popular guy. He's this Dutch guy that just loves cold, right? And I get how it invigorates the body. So there's a lot of benefits to it. I mean, if you just Google benefits to cold showers, and they'll all come up. But there's lots of videos on those. I do like to do them more when the weather's warmer. Like I'll take cold showers in the summer almost all the time.
And how cold? All the way cold?
Oh yeah, ice cold. Ice
okay.
Cold. Yeah. Like I'll just crank it right down to cold for sure. See if we got any more. The other thing about cold showers too is it forces your body and your will, in my estimation, to push forward, right? Like cold showers are not comfortable. They kind of sting. It's like pins and needles, you know, when it gets really cold too. So it forces you to basically push into a discomfort zone and make something your bitch. Like I like making things my bitch, right? Sort of thing. It's like, I'm not going to be this little wimp that's always going to take hot showers. I'm going to put myself in an environment where it's cold. I mean, you know, we didn't have hot water a couple hundred years ago. We didn't have, you know, turn on a faucet and hot water would come out. You'd have to boil water and make a bath. I mean, most people would probably bathe in a cold river, right? So I think our bodies are pretty much used to that.
Yeah, I like that exercise of just making your brain do something that it doesn't want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just willpower, and most people don't have a lot of willpower these days. So it's like a muscle, you know, that you kind of have to build, and like it's going to atrophy if you don't use it.
Yeah.
So doing something as simple as forcing the water to be colder than what you're comfortable with, it's cool. It works. Let's go back to the comments, see if we got any other questions. Do you believe addictions are coping mechanisms from bad childhood or trauma?
I believe they can be.
Yeah.
The addictions can help you avoid all kinds of things. And so if trauma is one of those things that you don't want to get in touch with and it keeps creeping into your head, one way to turn your brain off is to pick up the Jack Daniels or whatever, and then it turns your brain off.
Certainly can be in that sense, yeah.
For a little bit. Always comes back, but it turns it off for a minute.
Got a new hangout. Ryan?
Hey, hey, Rich. How's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you, man?
And Sean, I seen you a little bit of game and stuff. Got a question real quick. I'm 21. You know, what would you say? You know, being obviously you guys are, you know, in your upper 40s and stuff, and I've looked a little bit at Gary Vaynerchuk and you guys, you know, when you get to the older age, you talk about how, you know, you're in your thing and stuff. Like, what would you say to your younger self when you know you're 21, you really don't have anything, you don't have any assets, you're just kind of going through life for a minimum wage job, just doing, like, what would you if you were in my shoes way back when?
So if I understand correctly, your question is, what advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
Absolutely.
Sean, you want to go first?
Yeah, I would have told myself not to be such a dick, because that's not a nice guy when I was 20. I was really angry at the world, and I would have told myself, look, you got to get yourself surrounded with some men that you can count on and start learning and start putting some money in the bank and just start building a foundation. But that, you know, when you're a young guy, those emotions can be really powerful because you got a lot of emotional energy. You know, your brain has not grown in all the way yet, and so you can't let those emotions dictate your actions and then set your course for life.
I think the advice that I would give would probably be time will fly a lot quicker than you think. I spent a lot of time in my 20s fucking around doing a lot of unproductive things. And I could have used that time to, I mean, you know, you can make your first million sooner. You can start your first business sooner. You can have a family sooner. You know, sort of thing. But I think that I probably burned through most of my 20s not being incredibly productive. It wasn't until I hit 30 that I decided to really crank it up and double down a lot of stuff and put my dent in the universe. But that's what I needed in my 20s. Like, I needed to kind of like find myself. And, you know, there's some guys that I know that have built, you know, the most incredible successful businesses at 21 years old. Some guys, it takes a lot longer in their life to get to that point. Does that help?
It does help a little bit. I got a quick question though. So, my parents, I grew up wealthy. My parents, they own a couple businesses, and so I've always been at the beck and call, the whim of my family, because I was able to, you know, hey, work for the business, work this, work that. Like, I've never been on my own. I'm not sure. I've been thinking about making a move here recently. You know, Richard, I watched your videos. You actually put me on a Donovan Sharp, and I was watching some of his videos. I'm thinking about moving to Las Vegas, whatnot. You know, I've never been on my own, man. I've never been able to just, you know, get out of the nest. It's, to me, it's crazy to think about. It's like, what am I gonna do? You know, as you said, you know, when I was growing up, 21, it flew. I'm about to be 22 here now soon. You know, I really don't know it, and it's kind of scary to think about. You know, like, what am I gonna do with my life? And I look at Sean, you know, with his psychology background, and I think about it. It's like, you know, and Sean, I think definitely you could, you know, from your point of view, it's, I hear everything you say, and it makes me smile. It makes me think about it. You say, you put all these things in perspective, and I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but it's as you said, Richard, like with the emotion and stuff, it's like, I know, from the perspective of, hey, do this, do that, and whatnot. And I'm like, I can listen to you guys, and, you do awesome, but it's like the emotion and everything you feel, like, it's really hard. It's like, look, I'm not fucking stupid, I know what needs to be done. I'm not, you know, uh, be politically correct. I'm not a retard. I know, what needs to happen, but you take that emotion and stuff, and it's really hard to beat it.
It's
I'm
not.
going
It's,
to throw.
yeah, go ahead, Sean.
Let me throw an idea out here. I've known guys that have grown up with money. I'm not one of those guys, but I've known guys who grew up with a lot of money and they still went out and they conquered the world. Like they did not sit back and get comfortable about it. Then I've known guys who grew up with money and they just sat around and got weird because they never really had to engage with the world. And so they got socially awkward and they got just addicted to the comfort. And so I think maybe one of the challenges for you is
really had to engage.
Sorry, I'm just going to mute Josh.
Maybe one of the challenges for you is to get in touch with some discomfort and teach yourself that you don't need this gift that has been given to you. And maybe you find a way to walk away from it a while. Like Richard was saying earlier, like make it your bitch. Don't make the thing that defines your life. Like you control it and you be the guy that goes out and conquers the world and uses this gift to create something beautiful and great, and not the guy that just sits around and gets weird.
There you have it.
Well, I got a question for Sean though. So how do you, like, I mean, you've been in psychology, you've been doing this for X amount of years. How do you make it your bitch? How do you know, like, hey, I understand how this makes me feel. Like, I know doing this makes me feel A, but like, I'm going to do B. Like, I'm going to choose to do it. It's, as I said, being a young person, man, it's tough.
What are you talking about? Building discipline? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, sure.
You take on challenges and you conquer them. This is the difference between the guys I know that grew up with money and turned out weird and the ones that use that gift to create something great. Is they learned how to embrace discomfort. They learned how to embrace discipline. Like one guy went to a very difficult law program. And the reason he did that is because he realized that if he didn't do something that difficult, he was just going to sit around and get soft. And it was a very wise decision on his part because he learned how to embrace discipline and discomfort. And the money became something that didn't matter to him because he came out with a skill that he could use to make all the money that he wanted.
Here's the thing, Ryan. The world is the world's a bitch. It's it's a very harsh, difficult place.
It's not
and
fair.
if well, life ain't fair, right? But I mean, if you spend too much time milling over ideas and contemplating, or coming from a place of overanalyst, so that you're not doing anything, you're basically paralyzed, right? You have to start doing. Like, you have to start doing things. You have to start accumulating some wins, and there's going to be some failures in there, and success leaves clues, and so do failures. You just have to learn from them, man. Everything in life is a lesson. Cut the umbilical cord and just go out and do it, right? It's just, it's just time to make a move.
Yeah, Ryan, you asked earlier, what would I have told my younger self? And I'm thinking about that. I think the most important thing I would have told my younger self is to pick a mountain and climb it. And that means you decide you're going to do something, you're going to make something happen before you're the age of 30. And I had so many limiting beliefs when I was 21 that it would have blown my mind if I would have gone back and said, hey, you can make $1 million by the time you're 30, if that's your goal, or you can achieve this degree, or you can do whatever. That would not have registered with me at the time. And I guess in your case, it sounds like I get the feeling that you're looking for a mountain to climb here.
Absolutely.
You'll find it. You just have to go out there and start doing things, man. All right, Ryan.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
You got it, man. Have a good night.
Yeah, have a good one, Rich. Have a good one, Sean.
Okay,
Thank
gonna let you go.
Thanks, buddy.
Who's up next? We got Dennis. If you want to unmute yourself, Dennis, you have a question?
Hey, what's up? Is microphone working?
You're good. Yep.
Okay, so I just, I guess it's not relationship red flag, but it's more of an addiction red flag for myself.
Okay.
So I'm pretty new to the whole red pill thing. And one of the first changes I've made so far is, like, I was just working like a minimum wage job, going for like a arts or bachelor degree or whatever. But I dropped out of university and I'm in trade school now, learning to become a welder. I find that much more fulfilling and much better career opportunities. The issue I'm having now, since I started doing that, I'm still working to pay my bills, and going to school is using up 12 hours or more of my day. And I find since I've started doing that, I just become outside of work. Like, I stopped working out, I stopped going out socializing. I'm just exhausted, and all I do outside of this work and school is just video games, TV, being a couch potato. And I'm
How old are you,
wondering if
Dennis?
it's something to do with just I'm not used to doing these long days, or if it's more
How old are
becoming
you?
an addiction.
How
I'm
old are you?
24.
And sorry, you're asking if video games are an addiction for you?
Yeah, because they're kind of
How many hours a day do you play video games?
depending on the day, between 2 to 4.
Okay. And do you have a family? Do you have any kids?
No, I'm still single.
Mm.
Trying to get my baseline going before I get into all that.
If I may, there's like, just in your voice alone, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of man there, like a lot of confidence. And I'm not saying that to be disparaging or a dick or anything like that. It just doesn't sound like you're sure of yourself or confident in yourself, just the way that you're broadcasting. Do you go to the gym?
I used to. It's not since I've I kind of feel like I ran out of time since I'm working and at school all the time.
Got it. Okay, so I don't want to monopolize this one because I want Sean to chime in too. But like, if you're making video games a greater priority than self-care, then I would say that's a red flag.
For sure.
Why did you stop going to the gym?
It's just because I used to not do much in a day. Like, I just have classes and part-time work. Now I'm working more, and I'm in school most of the day, and I'm doing welding, right? So it's pretty exhausting. So by the end of the day, which I normally work out later in the day rather than the morning, I'm just completely exhausted.
Right. Is it an option for you to work out in the morning?
Possibly, but
It is an
start
option,
work
but
pretty-
what's stopping you from doing it? Of course it's an option, but what would stop you from doing it?
because like I work in the morning, and then my morning's just busy, I guess.
Right. How's your sleep?
Usually 7 to 8 hours.
Are you sleeping good?
Yeah.
You wake up feeling good?
Yeah, ever since I started doing this more manual labor instead of school, I sleep a hell of a lot better.
Yeah. How's your diet?
Decent. It's not perfect.
Are you packing a lunch or are you eating crap when you go out to work?
Yeah, I try to stick to mostly meat and vegetables. I try and cut out, but I still get to end up with carbs because I'm eating, like, packing sandwiches and stuff that's easy to make.
You got a girlfriend, family, people around you?
Yeah, pretty decent with relations with my family. We're pretty close.
Question for you, Dennis. What video game are you playing that's consuming all your time?
I play a few different games. I like Skyrim. I like Kerbal Space Program. More the like single player kind of stuff.
What is that, like run around shooter sort of stuff?
Skyrim's like RPG, kind of like fantasy, magic, that kind of
Okay,
stuff.
so you level up, new gear, better equipment. Yeah, okay.
Kerbal
So
Space Program is more about like designing rockets and
got it. So I mean, like, when it comes to video games or games in general, I mean, chess is one of my favorite games. It's a strategy game. You're playing against another person. It's a game. It's like, this is the oldest form of video game. It's just been around a hell of a lot longer before we had consoles. But it's person against person, and there's strategy, and it's like a war, and you have to sort of solve problems. So with modern video games, like a series that I really liked was Command and Conquer, right? Which is kind of like an online chess game sort of thing. So
what's that? Age of Empires was always my go-to multiplayer.
Right. So, I mean, if you're playing games that are challenging you, sorry, I'm just going to mute you, Shadow. Guys, if you join in and click the link, please make sure you're muted when you join us. So, I mean, if you're playing mindless video games, when you could put a priority on self-care, or maybe a more mindful game that challenges you and, creates strategy. Shadow, going to eject you if you do that again. I'm going to mute you. Okay. Hold on a sec. There we go. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So playing something like where where you're designing and the building stuff. Like in the second game was a bit more better than
strategy based, like
Yeah.
strategy based, where it's not like, you know, let's defeat this boss so you can level up, get the new sword, and then defeat the next boss sort of thing. It's like person versus person solving problems is my take on, if you're going to play video games, play those types of games. Running around and shooting them up and leveling up is not always that useful. Cool.
Yeah.
So Dennis, let me ask you a quick question. Were you wondering if you're asking about addiction? Are you wondering because you want to be playing less, or are you cool with the amount that you're playing?
Good question.
Well, that's the part. I'm pretty new to all this red pill, so I'm still learning a lot.
Are the games running you, or are you able to turn them off and go to bed when you need to go to bed?
Yeah, like I always go to bed on time. Like I'm very strict about my sleep. So
all right. So does it bother you that you're playing the games too much?
well, the part about it that's bothering me is that it's kind of taken over other stuff I've been doing.
What's it cost? What's it costing you?
I don't have the energy to do all the stuff I used to like to do. So
because it's going into the games.
Well, then I'd say it's a red flag.
Not so much like it's like, you know, I've been standing all day, so I just want to do something where I'm sitting down and, you know, not have to do a whole lot of physical.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm with you on that. You're working. It sounds like you're working full time, right? And you're going to school.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with you need a little time to zone out and let your brain change gears. It sounds like you're having a hard time stepping away from it if you're saying that it's costing you other things in life.
Yeah. Well, it's not like what I've thought about it. A lot of times it's not like, because I can easily replace video games with something else, but that something else isn't going to be fulfilling. Like, you know, working out or socializing or doing some of the other stuff I used to do before I started school.
You lost me there. You're saying that it wouldn't be fulfilling?
Yeah, because I tried, like I can quit video games, but it'll be replaced with something equally as lazy, like watching TV or something else.
Dennis, let me ask you this question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best version of yourself and 1 being the worst, where would you put yourself?
I'd say I'm in the middle. I'm at about a 5. I used to be a 2, a 5. I'm trying to get to an 8 or 10.
So ask yourself this question: Is playing this video game for 2 to 4 hours a day getting me closer to an 8?
No, it's the other stuff.
There you go.
What's the other stuff?
School and work.
All right, and besides that, you got to do something in those down hours. What would be the thing that would get you closer to an 8?
Continue working out again, and maybe do some of my old hobbies that were a bit more social.
All right, here's what I would suggest for you, Dennis, that set the game aside for a minute and just do this little experiment. Say to yourself that for 2 weeks, I'm going to go to the gym instead of playing games, and you set yourself up for success, meaning you put your gym clothes in your car or whatever so you don't have to go home, you don't face that temptation, and you just treat it as an experiment. And if after 2 weeks you feel like shit, then you can go back to the video games. That's
some sage advice right there.
What do you think?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. The other theory I was thinking of is just because went from a job or sitting down all day to doing something physically demanding where you're lifting up heavy things all day, walking around, standing up. So like despite stop working out, like I've still been keeping physically fit.
Okay, but you just said that going back to the gym would get you closer to an 8. Did you say that?
Yeah.
All right. So how about this? What if we do this? What if you and I make an agreement that I'm not going to do anything, but that you, for the next 2 weeks, will try this experiment. And then maybe when we're back on here in 2 weeks, you call in and check in and let me know how it went.
All right. I'm game. We'll see how it goes.
All right, then.
Let's do that. All right, Dennis. All right. Thanks, man. Have a good night.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.
All right. Going to get you in 1 sec, Josh. Just want to shout out to Cappy Donahue. Thank you for the super chat. Very generous of you. Josh, what's up, man? You got a red flag, something you want to vet?
Well, it's kind of, to be honest with you, I'm 44 and I'm kind of a late bloomer of a lot of things in life. I mean, I kind of moved to LA in my 20s from New York to pursue Hollywood and pursue entertainment industry. And then I kind of went through, my mother passed away when I was in my 20s. And, I kind of just made a bunch of hasty decisions with money, trying to do projects, and at the same time, never really went through my own sort of spiritual maturity as a person in many ways, and really kind of had not much of a dating life in my 20s. And in my 30s, I pretty much spent most of my 30s in relationships that I really shouldn't have been in and wasted a lot of time. So when I finally was single again, I tried to get out there, and I did sort of a lot of this Tinder dating stuff and a lot of these things. And it was just very frustrating. I felt like I could never get the kind of responses I wanted out of people. And it just, a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted money. And now I'm finally kind of coming into myself. And, it's kind of funny, like being a bit of a late bloomer, has so many things to it, but it's nice how when I'm older, I'm kind of finally adapting to things now. But it seems to have taken so long for me to just understand basic things about how to live your life. Like you guys are, smart about money and being entrepreneurs and stuff like that. And it's so funny how the process works. And now I'm not saying I'm perfect, because even now I still have these little internal conflicts in my head. And
Josh, I'm just going to jump in.
Yes.
So the question, like, what are you stuck on? Or what's
well, I guess
the red flag?
Well, I guess I guess I'm just more of kind of making an observation. I've been a big fan of yours for a while, been watching your things, and trust me, as a fellow bald guy, you definitely are a big inspiration. That you don't let that be a negative factor at all, because I really struggled with that for years. To be honest with you, I went through all kinds of crazy stuff with hair issues and stuff. I guess I don't really have a specific question, although actually it was kind of nice to hear a little bit in terms of some of these addiction issues, that to know that you can kind of baseline back to your original state, because I guess I was kind of worried in some ways whether some of these negative behaviors could have had permanent damage on myself. And it's nice to know that there's hope, and that and that I still have a chance of things going in the right direction. I just need to really set goals and stick to those goals. So I guess I just wanted to just chime in and just, thank you guys for being a really good inspiration on a lot of these things.
All right, Josh, you got it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Josh. I want to say one more thing to Dennis, if he's out there, and thanks for that, Josh, that when you do this kind of experiment, like this little 2-week experiment that we're talking about, you can't fail. And it's important to know that going in, that if you, a week from now, you found out that you went to the gym for a few days, but then suddenly now you're back in front of that game console, it's just data. And it's not something you need to beat yourself up about. Then we get to ask the question, okay, well, what happened and how do we deconstruct that? So I just wanted to say that so that Dennis isn't feeling a lot of pressure that this has to succeed, because experiments never have to succeed. They just have to be experiments.
Exactly. I think Shadow, you were up next. I think you were waiting the longest, right? You're still muted. Just unmute yourself.
You there?
Yep. Oh, Jordan. Okay, so we'll deal with Jordan first then, because Shadow's still muted. Go ahead.
Oh, cool. So I've got a quick question. I've got my can you hear me okay?
Hang on a sec. I got a question for you. Are you doing this from like a steam room?
No, my I cracked my laptop screen, so the camera's all blurry. So.
All right, no worries. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've got my best friend and brother, both involved in long distance relationships, and they've been in that period of time for about a year and a half. My brother's about 2 years now, and like all the way on opposite sides of the country type of thing. And I'm just kind of worried that of when those are eventually going to end, because I started reading Rollo's book about imaginary friends, and it's like, is there anything I can really do to I guess maybe prevent that train wreck from happening? Because I remember when I was in a long-term relationship that most of this red pill stuff wouldn't have made any sense to me when I was in the heat of the moment, like when you're in love or whatever. Mm-hmm. So is there anything I can do when they're like say or give advice to them when they're in that position?
Okay, so this is your brother and a friend that you're asking for?
Yeah, my best friend, yeah. I mean, one's in Colorado, his girlfriend's in Florida. My brother goes to college in Seattle, but his girlfriend's in DC of all places. So. And
you're concerned that because they're in a long distance relationship, it's going to end up in a train wreck for them?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm seeing it become I'm seeing them struggle to keep those alive, and I just don't know if there's anything I can do to. If it's just a matter of kind of they got to go through that kind of pain themselves so them understand it, or is there anything I could do
Well, are their spidey senses tingling? Like, are they asking you questions? Are they questioning the nature of the relationship?
I'd say my best friend's definitely asking me, or he seems uncertain. He says, like, for example, he'll tell me, when I'm away from her, I'm kind of questioning the relationship. Whenever I'm with her, I'm definitely very convinced that she's the one to be with. I'm like, well, yeah, of course that's true, because whenever you're with her, you're in that honeymoon phase, and so.
So I've got a bunch of videos on my channel on long distance relationships. Why don't you just send them one of those and just say, here, check this out. You might find some value in this.
Okay. Do you think that, 'cause part of my concern was that they're not going to, I don't know, take them seriously, I guess, because they're in that.
Well, I mean, here's kind of an asshole question for you, but who cares? I mean, like,
True.
why is their train wreck going to be your problem right now? Like, why do you have to lose sleep over what might potentially happen in their life when you've got your own life to lead, right?
Right. No, I totally agree. That's a good thought. Okay.
Sean? You're muted.
Sorry about that. How do you save people from themselves? That's the question. I don't know, man. You can throw a little bit of,
like, unplugging beta is hard work. It's not easy to do.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the issue is. When you see somebody headed for a train wreck, you can give them information. You can approach them with love. You can tell them you're concerned. You can ask them what they think about these videos that this guy in Canada made. All you can do is put it out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, I appreciate the content. I appreciate. I've been recently introduced to this kind of the red pill stuff, so I'm really happy I found it, because I had the hypergamy kind of hit me last April hard, and now it makes a lot of sense. So
that's good. Well, enjoy the rest of your steam room. Thanks for hopping in and asking the question, man. We'll see you later.
Yeah, all right. Thanks.
Ciao.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Who's up? Shadow, I think it was. Shadow, you're muted still. If you want to unmute yourself, go for it.
Hey, how's it going?
Going good. What's shaking?
Lots of stuff. So probably gonna use some expletive. First thing, thank you for your content. It's been really helpful. It's like kind of a grounding guidance type of thing. Question. So about a year and a half ago, I was supposed to move in with this girl, madly in love, fully blue-pilled beta. I'm going to super nice guy, blah, blah, blah. Although I understood some of the tenets of red pill just intuitively, I guess. But so that was a year and a half ago. Shit hit the fan, lost everything, lost my job, been kind of bouncing along the bottom for about a year. I've read Rollo's book twice now, 3 times, listened to the audiobook. Kind of Think and Grow Rich, New Psycho-Cybernetics, all of that stuff. And I'm kind of wondering when it's going to start to get better. I mean, obviously, actions come, and then, you take action and you get results. And I've been taking action, and the results seem to be, I don't know. I'm kind of wondering where the fuck they are at this point. I'm working my ass off, and just wondering how long it took you to. I mean, you're obviously financially very successful, and I've never been there. So I'm kind of wondering at what point is stuff going to start to shift.
What does the shift look like for you? Because I mean, I get this like cloud of despair over you right now, but what does the shift look like for you?
Well, basically, like, what I'm sitting in right now is the disintegration of all of my formative concepts. So I'm looking at the world now in this red pill lens, looking at my friends going, holy fuck, that was my friend. Like, why was I hanging out with that guy? Looking at my living situation, it's just like, okay, well, no wonder I live here. Looking at my work, looking at every aspect, especially the financial aspect too, because I've always I grew up really poor, always really struggled with the whole idea of money and power, and it kind of always, I have a lot of negative self-talk around that. And the biggest struggle I have is like, at what point can I say to myself, it's like, okay, now I'm okay. It's just like, where's that line? I mean, obviously I'd love to be a multimillionaire, but I'm 43. So the time I have to do that is very limited before I'm going to start to, I'm already, in the last 15 years, I've noticed obviously my energy levels have been dropping and yada, yada, yada. So it's like, I just feel like I'm running out of time.
You know what I see, Shadow? I see a man that somebody made a meme at one point a number of months ago, and they just put my face on it. It says, you know, if you listen to me long enough, at some point I'll brainwash you into thinking for yourself. And you look like a guy that's like kind of just awoken at 43, and that was around the same time that I woke up too, right?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden you start thinking for yourself, and you're like, okay, well, these friends really aren't my friends. There wasn't a lot of ROI out of those relationships, or whatever your understanding then becomes. You learn from what could have potentially ruined your life, you know, getting into a long-term relationship or marrying the wrong woman, which you awoke from as well. So I think you're just kind of going through the motions. I mean, it just looks like to me like you're just deciding to, like most guys sleepwalk through their life. Let's be honest. They literally sleepwalk through their life. They just become a cog in a wheel. They're just another sheep on the road, and they just sleepwalk through their life, you know, just doing what the good, you know, dutiful betas, you know, been designed to plug in and do. And you've unplugged from the matrix, and you're awake, and you see shit for what it really is. I mean, that's what I'm picking up from you anyway. And that's okay.
It's just super fucked to realize that everything that I ever thought was true is not true. And
okay, so here's the thing. Like, I've talked before on my channel about how to get better results out of life, and I don't know if somebody can grab the link and put it in the chat. That'd be awesome. But it's basically, I can tell what somebody's belief system looks like by looking at the results. And if your results suck, it's because you make bad choices, because bad choices get you crappy results. So how do you make better choices? You get a new belief system that governs your choice mechanism, right? So you're just updating your belief system. So just keep pushing on through. Like, it looks uncomfortable for you right now, and you're like, well, when does this get better? Trust me, shit gets a lot better. Sean, I'll shut up because I know that you got something good to say
right now.
Yeah, well, Shadow, I'm with Rich on this, but I would add to it that he used the word despair, and you know, the despair is coming through loud and clear. And the thing I hear in your language is you use a lot of words like everything. Everything is not what it seemed to be. And it sounds like your brain is telling you a lot of horror stories. And I see this a lot where a person's mind will come up with this idea that things are going in a bad direction. And then there's just this vague fear, this vague darkness that you don't know what you're headed into, but your brain is telling you this, the whole thing just sucks. And I think one of the things to really maybe start doing, in addition to what Rich is talking about, is maybe start questioning your brain on some of this. Like, is everything not what you thought it was? Well, maybe some important things aren't, but maybe there's some stuff that you can still rely on and plant a flag on, and you can start setting some specific goals. And, you know, if your entire sense of the world has been shaken, there's probably a little bit of overgeneralizing going on there. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I don't have savage credit card debt. I don't have a huge mortgage. Like, I'm in really good shape, like really good shape. So that part's good. It just, yeah.
How long you been? How long you been in the state? Yeah. We threw two questions at you once. So he asked where he lived. I asked how long you've been feeling like this.
It's like an on and off thing. Like, I'll be really hopeful and relieved that I'm finally getting to a place where it's like, oh yeah, my intuition was right about this. But there's so many people that in my life that are still plugged in, that it's like there's like this cognitive dissonance that's happening where it's like, these were my friends, they're saying this one thing, but I don't believe that. But if I tell them I don't believe that, they're gonna fucking peace. So I'm kind of in this like isolation place.
Sorry, Sean, let me just hop in for a sec. Shadow, what do you do for a living?
A lot of things. Construction labor. I work in film as a grip, and I'm a bouncer on the weekends. So,
okay.
I mean, being a bouncer, obviously, the female nature is like blatant in that particular avenue. But yeah. So, I mean,
are you in my men's community?
No, sir.
You know, not to be salesy, but I think you'd get a shitload out of it. There's some premium videos in there that would give you a lot of insight, and plus the guys in there are awesome. Like, you'd get wicked feedback on conversations like this.
What are the guys like where you work?
With that idea. They're bouncers. The club and the guys that I work with on construction they're all in like this blue pillish kind of long-term relationships. They have ex-wives and kids. So it's,
it's okay to prune to grow, right?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of fucking pruning right now, man. Like,
yeah,
it's
like
savage.
Pruning,
it's savage.
pruning is part of the growth process. And if like, you're not going to get to where you want to go if you're still carrying around certain people and habits and things in your life that are anchors, right? I mean, you want people to light you up. You want sales to push you along, sort of thing.
Yeah. It's, I feel like I'm kind of like on the way up, but it's pretty dark right now.
Yeah, Conk had this comment. He said bouncers and security guards see a lot of human nature. And I think that's really true. It can be really depressing. And I think Rich is talking
a lot of the worst.
Yeah, Rich is talking about community. So you're doing a lot of pruning. All right, what are you replacing it with? And I think community is going to be pretty important.
Yeah, Conk says he'll buy you the membership. He says you're a good fit.
All right.
So click the button and join us, dude. There's lots of good premium content there, and you'd really like the guys. I mean, if you're looking for a new circle of influence and with where you're at right now, you'll find that there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. I really appreciate what you've been doing. It's helped me a lot. Thank you very much.
Cool, man. Take care.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. See ya.
Ciao.
Jens RP, if you want to unmute yourself, do you have a question?
Yep.
There you go. Fire away.
So I've been in university for 3 years now, and I'm trying really to be in touch with the community, trying to get in some leadership position, everything. But since I've gotten introduced to Red Pill, I feel like everything I'm doing right now, it's less and less, let's say, fulfilling. And I'm really trying to see where I really want to go right now. I mean, I thought I wanted something, but the more I'm here in college and the more I hear about the stuff you say, guys, and making your own employer of origin and doing all that stuff, I feel like I'm doing this for nothing. And the more it go, the less I've got motivation just to do my stuff and just
What is it about university that's taken away your initiative?
I feel like I'm doing a lot of stuff that is pretty much useless. Some classes are useful, but most of it, I feel like I'm just 2 hour, 3 hour in a class.
Why are you going to school?
I'm in New Brunswick.
What? No, why are you going to school?
On business.
How old are you?
21.
And are you in university or are you at a community college?
University.
You know, I sat in college for 2.5 years. I think it was a 3-year course, and I left at 2.5 years because I had this feeling that I was wasting my time. I had this feeling that there were people teaching me things that they didn't really comprehend fully. I had this feeling that I was basically just redoing parts of high school over again, but at a slightly more advanced level. That was my intuition speaking to me. And I had an opportunity like 3 to 4 months towards the end of the course to go on a road trip with my dad through the States to sell electronic components at 21, I think it was. And I learned more in a week on the road with my dad about life and business than I did in a 2.5 year business course. Are your spidey senses tingling?
Yeah, I've been maybe this summer. I started to work a little bit more with my father in his business. He have a vineyard in Quebec, and the more it's going, the less. Let's say the more I want to take back the business because my father's getting a little bit old, and maybe I feel more attracted toward it than when I was younger.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a great experience in post-secondary education. You know, I walked away from it really resonating with that phrase, those that can do, those that can't teach. And there was a lot of people just teaching shit just to, create some sort of decent income or a pension or something. It seemed like they didn't really actually know what they were doing or they cared. So if you have the opportunity to work with your dad in the vineyard, that's what I would be doing.
Yeah, because like in the forefront, when the reason I start university was especially because I want to get in the army as an officer, and now more is going, the less I see the value of it.
Meaning that you see less value in joining the military?
No, just the 4 year it take just to get my degrees, just to get in the military. and especially because I don't think I want to make a full career in it. The more it's go, the more I think I just want to do like maybe one 5 years and just do my time, and after that, going in the market and having a business, helping my dad with his business and hiding my stuff. Just
so if you had a good reason to be going to school, I would say keep going to school, but it sounds like you're struggling a little bit with where your values lie. Do your values lie in school or do they lie elsewhere? And I think when you're a young guy, the way to answer that question is to try a bunch of different stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people in the comment right now that are saying things like, I wish I had a dad, or I wish I could work with my dad again. I miss him. You got a good opportunity right now with youth and the ability to maneuver and time to be a part of what your father's created and maybe take it off his hands. I think you already have the answer to this question. It sounds like, you would definitely avoid a train wreck by certainly participating in the family business more.
Yeah. Cool.
Does that help?
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. I'll let you go. Thanks for clicking in. I think, Jesse, you're up next if you want to unmute yourself.
Hey, Rich, can you hear me okay?
Ooh, hold on a sec. I am going to mute you. So I don't know what's up with your sound. Click the link and join back in and see if that fixes it, and I'll take you first. But there's something wrong with your sound, so I'm just going to eject you, but come back, okay? All right, so I'll give Jesse a chance to click that again and join back in. We're only going to go for about another 10 more minutes, so no new joins. Let's kind of finish up what we got. I just posted the link there again for you, Jesse, if you want to try to click that and see if that fixes your audio problems. Just give him a minute while he does that. I think there was a super chat there. Let me just acknowledge that. I think he said something about that last guy, Shadow. Shadow looks like the Punisher. He did, didn't he?
Yeah, he's a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
He's got a lot going for him, but his world got shook up a little bit, it sounds like. And I was kind of curious what caused that. I wish we had more time to go into that kind of stuff sometimes. But.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a longer deep dive in this. It's tough to tell. Like, do you go deep on this topic with this person, or is this like a 5-minute conversation?
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll kind of get into a better rhythm as time passes. Jesse hasn't clicked back in, so I think you were up next. So if you want to unmute yourself, if you have a question or a red flag you wanted to chat about. Say again.
Can you hear me?
Faintly. No, I'm not getting your audio. I don't know what's up with your end, but I'm just gonna mute you and let you go. You might have to try to click back in, but something's up on your end. Colston, unmute yourself. Let's give you a try.
Hello, guys.
There you go. Good audio.
Okay. So I was recently introduced to the red pill by one of my friends about 3 months ago, I'd say. And we recently both went through a situation where I felt like it was a red flag. And he's at work right now. So I thought since he introduced me to the red pill and it's caused so much change in my life that I'd ask the question for him. So basically, we were hanging out with two girls, and he's been seeing this girl non-exclusively. He has quite a few girls whenever he can. He lives about 4 hours away from where she does. So he goes to see her whenever he comes to visit me. So we usually just go hang out with her together, whatever. We were hanging out with them, and it was going well. And I feel as though he like plays the alpha card most of the time. And then it got to the point where we were at one of the girls' houses, and they were both getting tipsy. And one of the girls was acting extremely dramatic. And it felt like to me that she was just like really pulling out this drunkenness that she didn't have that much. And then as the night went on, she started picking up her phone more, and she wasn't being very connected with us. And she was starting to text some other guys, or at least implying that other people were coming over later, and that they were wanting to smoke weed and stuff like that. And so she started implying that she wanted us to leave. And from what my friend's view was, that he was the most alpha dude that she was hanging out with or whatever like that. So he felt like he would be the first priority, and like no other dudes would just like come in. So it ended up that multiple times she was just like, oh, I want to take a nap or blah, blah, blah. or she should go now. I told my friend that like I was reading the medium is the message, like Rolo says, that it's time to go. She's not only saying it, but she's just like being non-responsive to us. So at this point, he thought it was about time to leave, and then I really encouraged him to leave, and we ended up leaving. And now he's questioning whether or not that was the right move.
This doesn't really sound like a before the train wreck sort of question. This is kind of like, this is what happened. What do you guys think, sort of thing, right?
I was sort of, but also before the train wreck of he thinks that he should continue with her, and it seems like a bad move is what I mean.
Well, as far as red flags go, if you're spending time with these women and you're kind of socially hanging out, and she's disconnected from the people in the room by picking up her phone constantly and then texting other guys and then inviting them over and then telling you guys to get lost. Yeah, that's a red flag.
Okay.
And I would put some distance, you know, between yourself and her. Like let her come to you.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But this is kind of like red pill 101 stuff, right? I mean, Sean, do you want to add to that? You're muted. You're muted. Sorry. You're going to start over. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I keep doing that. Yeah, it sounds like a bunch of trifling nonsense. I never had time for that kind of behavior. So it's your choice. I mean, not to be a dick about it, but you know, you choose what you allow into your life.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, you're going to get out of life what you tolerate. And if you're going to tolerate that kind of behavior, then that's what you're going to get. I mean, if you want to be firm next time, it's like, hey, we're in the room, put down the phone. Seriously.
Yeah, we did try that, but it proceeded to not go well. So I think that then was probably the best option.
Yeah, then rather than her telling you guys to get lost, then you guys leave on your own accord. It's like, look, you know, if you're not going to be present, then we got other things to do. So we'll catch up with you later. Okay. And then just walk out.
I appreciate it a lot. I'm sure he will too.
Okay.
All right, man.
All right, dude. Take care.
Bye.
Hey, Rich, ES Revenue asked this question. How do you go out and socialize, but overcome the urge to want to drink? You go to AA. AA is awesome. And the way to approach Alcoholics Anonymous is you find a club, you try out a meeting. If it's not your thing, you find another one. But you're looking for specific skills. That's the place to get it.
There you go. We've got 9:24 on the clock on my end. Do you have another 5 minutes to do one more call?
Yeah, let's do one more.
All right, we'll make this the last one. So, Demian, just unmute yourself.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, I'd called in earlier. I got sound now back. So I got a question about redemption. I want to start off by saying that I did a recent video, I watched Aaron Clary's video, Asshole Consulting, and he did one about red flags for men, for women to look out for.
Okay.
Of those, there are two that, and I can't recall what they are at this time, but there's two that I check. On the flip side, I know this chick who has two children who don't live in her life. They live with her father somewhere. She is a really cool person. Like we can finish each other's thoughts. I have this red flag where I'm just like, no, I'm not going there. But she's trying to improve her life. She's, doing work, learning to code, working from home, turned herself around. Like she was in a relationship that she got out of, and she's trying to pay for stuff herself. So the question is, like, you see all these red flags that are massive red flags, but at what point do you let it go? Can you let it go?
Well, here's a question that I want some clarity on. Why doesn't she see her kids?
I don't know the answer to that.
That would be a good question to ask, because that's going to indicate.
I'm not interested in dating her. This is more of a philosophical question of at what point does redemption, is that an allowable thing where you might consider a relationship with somebody?
Well, you're using her as a case study, so I think it's important to get clear on how you vet women, right? And if you're talking about a single mommy that doesn't have any access to her children, but she's doing all these other things, my first question would be, well, why don't you get to see your kids? Like, that's an important question to get clarity on, right?
Correct. I'm not looking to date her.
Got it.
It's just one of those things where we have a really good chemistry. I know she's really into me, but at the same time, I'm just like, no.
So what is the nature of your relationship? Is it sexual? Are you friends with benefits? Do you just have coffee together? Like,
It could be sexual at the drop of a hat if I wanted to, but I just don't want to go there. I mean, it's part
so
of
it hasn't
what
been sexual.
No, and from listening to you and other people, like all these red flags come up, and I'm like, no, I don't want to go there. I'm not actually that attracted to her as well, but it's just the philosophical question of.
So if she's not that important to you, then why are you using her as a case study tonight, right now, in this call?
It's just the redemption part, because I know that, as I started at the beginning, I know that I have to work on stuff on my end, and at what point do I get redemption for my red flags, right?
Can you offer some clarity on what you mean by redemption? I'm not sure I'm clear on it.
Well, you've had women or people with red flags, but at some point people might work on their lives like I'm trying to do, and she's trying to do, to improve yourself, to become a better version, like you always say. I have been following that advice on your side, and it's really made a difference in my life. So I'm wondering, what to you is success, and where does that obviate red flags?
So two things before I pass it off to Sean. One, the vetting component is kind of important, and two, look, like women have girlfriends and boyfriends. If you're not banging her, then you're her girlfriend, right? You're not very specific on this chick on a number of accounts and accords, and it just seems like you've kind of pulled her out of thin air and saying, well, if somebody's redeeming themselves in life, at what point do you accept or deny them access to more of your non-sexual attention, sort of thing, right?
Or sexual attention. I mean, it comes to mind that I could just snap my fingers basically and have something where they're just, to get my dick wet, so to speak. But I don't want to do that based on the red flags.
Sean?
And
well, so you're asking this philosophical question: when has somebody redeemed themselves? And one of the things I say in my book about vetting women is that I'm not really interested so much in the nature of the problem, although I am interested in that. I'm interested in whether or not they're doing something about it, and they're doing something consistently. And it kind of depends on the nature of the problem. Some problems can be fixed pretty quickly. Other problems are lifelong. Like if someone who's addicted to heroin or alcohol, that might be a lifelong project for them, but are they doing the work lifelong? So, redemption comes, I guess, when your tolerance for the risk is outweighed by the effort that they're putting into it. And I don't know how to quantify that formula.
so you're saying it's a personal case by case kind of basis, like you and somebody, there's not anything generic. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say case by case, but the general principle is, are they solving the problem and are they addressing it?
Got it. Sounds good.
But you can't identify that component if you don't know what the problem is. And one of the problems we don't know is, why doesn't this woman see her kids? Why is she focusing on coding shit for computers, but not like having any time with her children?
Yeah,
which is exactly why I don't want to ever go there. It's just one of those. That for me is a massive red flag, right?
Right, but I want you to go through the exercise of asking these questions, right? Because it's good for you to, build that muscle.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think another thing to take into consideration is that relapse is usually a part of the process for almost everybody. And so whatever they were struggling with before, they're going to struggle with it again at some point. And do you have room in your life for whatever it was they were struggling with?
Well, I've been through that myself. I relapse on my problems, and I'm working on them.
Yeah, and it's not the end of the world. Relapse is never the end of the world. It's what you make of it.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, thanks for hopping on. Appreciate the question. Have a good night.
Thanks,
All
man.
right. That's the last one for the evening. Well, that was a good show.
Yeah, some interesting themes. I'm going to be up all night thinking about some of this stuff. As always.
There'll be some things milling. I know that Sean will put out a tweet tomorrow. He'll have some notes. Punisher, this is your advice. Damien, this is your advice. He's always got some good follow-up feedback. I really enjoy that part. So guys, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel and you've got the notification bell bang so you don't miss these broadcasts. We'll do episode number 9. You're good for next Monday, the 25th, Sean?
Let's do it.
All right, next Monday, the 25th, 8 p.m., episode number 9. We're gonna crack 10 soon. Before I go, I gotta, of course, give thanks and shout out to the channel sponsor, the Tactical Soap Company. There's a link in the top comment and pinned above. You get 10% off when you check out with coupon code Cooper. Pheromone infused handmade soap in the United States. You guys are showering anyways. Buy some stuff that supports the creation of content on this channel. I want to thank everybody for the super chats, the members, the contributions, all that good stuff. Sean, any final words?
Not tonight. I'm done.
Done. All right.
That was a good show. Thanks to everybody who called in. That was really good.
Thank you. And I'm going to link Sean's channel again. Follow him on YouTube. I just linked it. He's got some awesome content coming out on that. So we'll see you guys next Monday on episode number 9 of Before the Train Wreck. Thanks, everybody. See you guys later. Peace.